In this short video, we're going to cover how to get into VMware Workstation 15.5 Phoenix versus UEFI BIOS. So first we're going to set up a quick and dirty virtual machine. So we're going custom, Workstation 15.x. We're going to select, I will install the operating system later. We're doing a Linux Red Hat 7 series 64-bit. We're going to change our location where we're going to put our virtual machine and also change our name. For this particular one, we're going to call it REL1. We're going to point it to our external SSD drive. In my case, that's going to be the F drive. Yours may be D, E, F, G, depending on how your drives are set up. Make a new folder. We're going to give it a name for where we want to put our virtual machines. This particular one, VM images. And that'll save your images there. We're going to give it 2 processors. And then we're going to bump the memory to 4 gigs. We're going to use the default NAT, default drive types. Default drive, we're going to bump it up to a 40 gig drive, and we're going to make it all one file. And default file name is fine. Now we want to go into our customize our hardware. We don't need a printer, we don't need a sound card. And then we need to point where it's going to find the ISO file when we actually want to install the OS. So we want to go into the CD DVD drive, and we're going to point that to our ISO file, which you downloaded from the previous server. And ours is going to be rel 7.7. And then we can click close and make sure that the drive is set to connected power on. Then finish. Now what we want to do is we're going to go in, and where you actually change the BIOS settings is under the second tab option, advanced. Then you have the option of selecting BIOS, which is the Phoenix BIOS, or UEFI, which is the more modern BIOS. Be aware that classic BIOS is what you're going to want to use with Linux. UEFI will not work with Linux. For a Windows install, you can use either, preferable with Windows 2019, that you're going to want to use UEFI. So if you select classic, and then you go up top and select start to firmware, it'll boot into the Phoenix BIOS. So then we're going to switch it really quick. So we go back into settings. We're going to go into options. We're going to go into advanced. We're going to switch it to UEFI. Select OK. And then we're going to go to power. And we're going to say power to firmware. And that'll boot directly to the BIOS. And now we're into UEFI's boot window. Now to switch it back, go into power, power to off. Yes, shut down. Go into settings. Go into the options. Advanced. We're going to switch it back to the classic Phoenix BIOS. Select OK. Go power. Power on to firmware. And then we're back to the Phoenix BIOS. So real quick and dirty way showing of how to get from the Phoenix BIOS or UEFI BIOS and set those up for your machines. Again, Phoenix BIOS is what you're using for Linux.